I really started getting into meditating, reflecting on healing past wounds, past traumas that I had not even addressed in decades. And that made me a better provider for my patients because not you're seeing the whole patient now,
Mhm.
like I think we learned that in school, like, the patients are mind, body, and spirit, but until you actually really get down to the science of it and think about it, like we're not just bringing a patient back for an eye surgery, for a cataract or for
Mhm.
whatever. We are taking care of a whole person who has a whole history, who has a whole family. And it just kind of like the switch went off.
Mhm. Welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. Join me for some honest, unscripted discussions with other CRNAs who are transforming their financial lives. This episode is brought to you by On Call Capital. On Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today. And now, on with the show. Welcome to another Provider Spotlight episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. Our guest today is a fellow CRNA, author, and business entrepreneur. Crystal Grant is an advanced practice registered nurse with over 19 years of experience in a variety of healthcare settings. In 2013, she graduated with her Master of Science in Nursing and started her career as a CRNA. Over the past 8 years, from working in the medical field as well as surviving her own health battles, Crystal has become passionate about overall wellness. She believes that we are mind, body, and spirit, so when one is out of alignment, the other areas cannot thrive. But this has not been an easy journey for her. As a frontline worker, Crystal was diagnosed with COVID-19 in January of 2021. While healing and recovering, she began looking at ways to help others in the same situation. From there, she started daily meditation, yoga, and exercise routines while also creating an immune support gummy. With daily movement and nutrition, Crystal is able to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Crystal decided to partner with a friend to start Superscript Wellness, a health and wellness company. She's enthusiastic about sharing her daily activities to help others heal their body from the inside out. Crystal, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's so great to have you here. And coincidentally, you just happen to live here in town, in Winston Salem. So we've already discussed like we're gonna get together off camera, have some coffee or something. But now you yourself have been in healthcare for nearly 20 years, and I'm sure you've seen the full gamut along the way. Uh, First one's kind of a reflective question. How do you think you've changed as a provider over all of those years?
Oh my goodness. Well, to begin with, I got into nursing because my mother was a nurse and my mother was diagnosed with stage 4 uterine cancer a year before I started college,
Oh my
essentially.
goodness.
And yeah, and so I actually, by my junior year, she had passed away from cancer. So I went from being a family member, who loses probably the closest person to most people
Mhm.
that you'll have in life while I was just barely 20 years old. And then I graduated nursing school at 22 and started in the intensive care unit. And just, being a novice, not really knowing, nursing school kind of sets you up to know the very basics, but you really
Mhm.
don't know how to be a nurse just yet. So I was taking care of others and I really hadn't addressed the trauma that I had been through. But I didn't realize that then.
Mhm.
You're in your 20s, you don't really know much.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just kept working, kind of always striving towards the next goal, never really stopping to reflect on how I was feeling on the inside. how I was manifesting the negative things that were happening in my life and my romantic relationships and things like that. Just
Mhm.
never kind of putting two and two together.
Mhm.
And then when I was 30, I got into CRNA school and moved, uprooted my life from North Carolina to New Jersey. And again, you're just kind of in the rat race, focused on, making it through school, making it through another day of clinical,
Mhm.
not getting yelled at by your preceptor. And you're just really not focused on taking care of yourself. So I had gained a ton of weight over the years. I'm only 5'2". So, even 15 pounds is a lot on my frame, but I had gained about 70 pounds.
Mhm.
And I was just very unhappy with myself, unhappy with life. But again, our job is to take care of others as healthcare providers. So you're
Mhm.
really, for the most part, not focused on taking care of yourself. At least I wasn't.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until 2017, actually, I was going through a divorce and I was just so unhappy with myself, my life. I really started getting into meditating, reflecting on healing past wounds, past traumas that I had not even addressed in decades. And that made me a better provider for my patients because not you're seeing the whole patient now,
Mhm.
like I think we learned that in school, like, the patients are mind, body, and spirit, but until you actually really, really get down to the science of it and think about it, like we're not just bringing a patient back for an eye surgery, for a cataract or for
Mhm.
whatever. We are taking care of a whole person who has a whole history, who has a whole family. And it just kind of like the switch went off.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that makes complete sense, and it's hard when you're in your early 20s, to kinda commiserate with people who have all of these life's experiences, and you've not had that experience yourself, so, um, it takes that time and going through life a little bit to almost develop some of that, and, we talk about being aware of that, but it takes time to develop those traits, I think, so but, in your bio, you mentioned that you're an author, and obviously you care a lot about other people, but what made you decide to document some of those experiences and use your voice as a writer?
So, part of my growth and kind of self healing that I had mentioned starting in 2017, in 2018, I actually started showing up more on social media. And when I say showing up, I mean like showing my face, actually talking. For many years, I was on social media, but first of all, I was very unhappy with how I looked because I was so overweight and so unhealthy. So I would post something, but never really show myself.
Mhm.
And so in 2018, once I had lost some weight and, I had gotten into working out and I was feeling better and looking better, I actually just started talking about, hey, I'm Crystal. I'm a nurse anesthetist. This is kind of what we do. Because in my brain, I'm thinking we are a hidden secret, our profession. Um, it's always kind of been said like we're the best kept secret, but
Mhm.
how can we grow our profession if we're a secret? So I just started showing up on social media, mostly on Instagram, and I started getting all of these messages and followers and people saying, "Oh my God, a CRNA!" And it was like
Yeah.
but it makes sense if you're a Smurf, a urban legend, but then you start showing up all of a sudden, people are going to be like, oh my god, they do exist. So, so I mean, I always call myself a Smurf when we're in the blue scrubs anyway, but
Oh, yeah, I can see that now, yeah.
so
I was
it's
like, "Wow, you just pulled out a complete '80s cartoon, like, I would not have picked that." But yeah, okay. I'm following you now, I'm tracking.
I'm an 80s baby, so I make a lot of 80s references, but
Yeah.
I started getting a lot of the same questions asked of me over and over and over. What does it take? What kind of ICU should I go to? Is this experience good? What kind of questions do they ask on an interview? And I found myself answering these same types of questions daily.
Mhm.
And so I was like, let me put a PDF document together and then I can just kind of send it to people. But then it became, well, I should probably tell my story of what led me up to the point of becoming a CRNA, because not only did I lose my mother in nursing school, I lost my father 3 years after that. And then right when I started applying to CRNA school, my brother was killed in a motorcycle accident. So I
Oh
had
my
all these
goodness.
traumas kind of leading up to, would I ever become a CRNA? I had a lot of
Mhm.
self doubt. A lot of people that were messaging me had a lot of doubt. Am I too old? Am I smart enough? Am I good enough? Is 10 years of ICU enough experience? A lot of the self doubts that I had, they were showing me that they had as well when they were messaging me. So I was like, I should kind of share my story, because they're seeing me all put together now in 2018 slash 2019 on social media, but they don't know anything about what it took for me to get here. So
Mhm.
my first book, I just so happen to have copy.
Oh, well, look at that.
Oh, I have
All
my
right.
my green screen though. Okay,
There you
so
go.
you can't really see it, but
Well,
it's a
we'll put a link in the show notes
okay.
for all this stuff. Don't you worry about that. But yeah. So
So
what was
that's
it called again?
So it's called Acceptance Granted: One Woman's Journey to Becoming a Certified Registered Nurse Anesthetist. And it took me a couple weeks to write, honestly, because I just got right in the flow of it. And it was like all the questions that had been asked of me, I already had
Yeah.
those answers. So it
Yeah.
really didn't, and I already knew my backstory because I had lived it. So it
Mhm.
really didn't take me long to write. I self-published on Amazon, and it was number one the first day it came out. So
Holy smokes.
yeah, I'm super blessed. Yeah, and it's
That
helped so
just
many people.
Yeah, well, I mean, that just tells you what, like people were thirsting for that, and
Mhm.
they needed that information from you, and that's an amazing story. So you also, though, that's not the only book you've written. You've actually co-authored a children's book.
Yeah.
What was that process like, and what's the name of the book?
So that is called the Super CRNA series. There are three books in the series so far. Well, one book is in the English and Spanish version. So, and then there's a second book that's a Christmas emergency. And basically, I had gone to a diversity CRNA event in Augusta, Georgia. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dr. Lena Gould, who runs Diversity CRNA, but
Yes, yes.
I had participated in one of those events, and I met tons of aspiring CRNAs. And one of them, his name is Everett Moss. He wasn't a SRNA just yet, but he was actively applying or getting ready to apply to schools at that time. And Everett's resume is, he's not only, well, at the time he was an ICU RN, but he's also been a flight nurse. So he's known as the paramurse.
Okay.
He had been an EMT slash firefighter before that. He has like more credentials behind his name than most people I know. And he's this tall African American man. He's married. He's got three beautiful children. And I'm like, what a great role model he would be as a character for a book. And though he wasn't a CRNA yet, I'm the CRNA. So I actually took the liberty
Hmm.
to write this children's book kind of about a black male CRNA who helps a young boy in an emergency situation. And I had Everett write the introduction for just to showcase, one, that males can be nurses.
Hmm.
You don't have to be a CRNA, but Everett has tons of other things that he's done in healthcare to help people. So I just thought it would be such a great opportunity to showcase to young men, especially, that hey, if you want a career in healthcare, here's Everett.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, I think it's so cool to have the different types of representation. And diversity is, it has been an issue and continues to be an issue across different healthcare industries, not just anesthesia. So, um, and when I found you, for this interview, when I reached out to you, I had found your profile and I saw you wearing a shirt that said "Minding my black owned business," and I said to myself, I just have to have you on the show. That was I just I reached out to you right then. And so, now that I've got you here, can you it's obvious the passion that you have. So when did it really become important to you to kind of change some of those perceptions and try to increase the diversity in healthcare?
Yeah. So before I answer that, I have to shout out my best friend who's also CRNA, and she will for sure listen to this podcast episode. Thomasina, she's actually the one who purchased that shirt for me for my birthday, minding my Black owned business. So, and she's a wonderful soul. So thank you to her. But I think it was when I first started showing up on social media and just seeing the response that how well received I was by not just African Americans, but from so many different people in different stages of their career journey. And it really helped me remember what it was like to, I just want to, get my ICU experience, or I can't wait until I can start applying. Like it helped me to go back to those times in my life
Mhm.
where that's all I wanted was to be a CRNA. And now here I am, a
Mhm.
CRNA talking to these people. So
Yeah.
um, it was 2018 slash 2019 when it really like just clicked to me that hey, we African Americans only make up 1% of the nurse anesthesia community. So again,
Yeah.
yeah,
I had no idea it was even that low. I
yeah,
thought it was a couple percent higher, but my goodness.
yeah,
Yeah, we've got to improve that for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, for sure.
So, well, we talked a little bit about your health battles earlier. We all seem to kind of have our own vices. And when I was working in the ICUs and whatnot, I'd always laugh when I saw the respiratory therapist I worked with. They'd go out on their smoke breaks, and I'm just, it blew my mind, at the time. And um, it's always struck me how many of our fellow nurses and physicians and other providers, they, just kind of seem to neglect their own self care.
Yeah.
And so, how do you think that people can kind of begin to change that?
Um, well, honestly, I think if anything, COVID opened a lot of people's eyes to just that fact. Um, I have found that a lot of people who were in healthcare and they were like the ones who would pick up 10 straight shifts, because it was just all about the money, all about the grind.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, I've found that a lot of people have either slowed down, they've realized that overworking themselves to the point of exhaustion for, an extra XYZ amount in their paychecks isn't always worth it.
Yeah.
I think they've realized that their health, and when I say they, obviously I'm talking a lot about myself as well, but you realize that your health is a gift. I think COVID really shined a light on that for a lot of people
Mhm.
because I think a lot of the whole entire world was affected in one way or another, if not someone they know got sick or someone close to them that got sick or they even got sick. Um, and then they saw how they were treated by administration. And so I think,
Yeah, the big sigh is warranted there.
so
It's a
like,
shame.
it is. And then we saw, the crisis pay that certain facilities were given. And it's like, oh, so you do have the means to pay this amount to, you know, workers and things like that. But I think a lot of people's eyes were open since the pandemic, just about their
Mhm.
health and their life in general.
Yeah.
And I know for me, it kind of became like the next level of for me because I was on a debt free journey. And so I was so focused on just working, 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 working. And then boom, everything shut down. And I was actually laid off. And that 11 weeks, having those 11 weeks off, granted, it was a pandemic. And I know a lot of people lost their lives and were very sick and lost their
Mhm.
jobs and things like that. I was able to collect unemployment, but I was also able to do a hard reset on my life and my values. And I I quit my job. I moved 700 miles to North Carolina,
Mhm.
and now I'm on this supplement health and wellness journey because I just want to help as many people as possible as I can.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. And I mean, and I think that's a story for a lot of people. I mean, I've heard countless stories from CRNAs who, I mean, maybe it wasn't 11 weeks, maybe it was only, 3 or 4 weeks that they were off, but it was a scary moment because they realized how, you know, I guess delicate the situation can be at times. We always talk about how, well, nursing is always needed and you always, are going to have a job and you're always going to have income and it's one of the most secure jobs, and all of those things are true, but there are times when something can come along and still, shake those foundations. So um now I do want to transition to a little bit about your business. I mean, writing a book, when you're done writing a book, the work is mostly complete. I mean, obviously you have to market it and talk about it and whatnot, but it's pretty much complete. The big work is done. Starting a business is a whole different type of ball game, and the work seems to never be done, and likely starts to increase as you find success. So what made you want to actually start your own business?
Yeah. So like my intro said, I've almost been in healthcare for 20 years. And I know you're like, how can that be when you only look 21? But
I actually felt bad about mentioning, like the 20-year thing, because you and I imagine we're similar in age. I
mhm.
look much older than you. You
Well,
are glowing. Well, I'm glowing, but that's because I'm losing my hair. And it's the light shining off of my forehead. But you know, you are literally glowing, and I think that's so cool. But yeah, I'll let you continue. What made you decide to start your own business?
well, 20 years in this game, it's a long time. It takes a lot from you and out of you. And I know there are ways that I can help more than one person at a time. And I say that because right now in the operating room, I can only concentrate on one patient at a time when I'm delivering anesthesia. But if I create a supplement that can help the masses, just kind of be healthier from the inside out, then I mean that in and of itself is like, I don't want to say a miracle, but it's just a blessing
Yeah.
to be able to do that. So I started researching. I actually was going to come out with a different supplement, but then I got sick January 1st. I woke up with a soreness in my chest and just really didn't feel well. By the
Mhm.
third, I had my positive diagnosis for COVID. And I was very upset because I had worked to accrue that time off. I had 10 days off finally, and I spent those whole 10 days sick with COVID. And
Ugh.
so, yeah, and that again, it's like a light bulb goes off in your head,
Mhm.
and you're just like, what am I doing? I am literally running myself sick.
Yeah.
Um, and you cannot pour from an empty cup. So how can I go into work and take care of patients if I'm not feeling my absolute best and if I'm not full? So I began doing the research. I was taking some different supplements at home, just
Mhm.
things that I had picked up from the grocery store, but I was kind of having to take one of each. And I was like, it would be so nice if one, I didn't have to swallow because my throat hurts, these big, tablets, and
Yeah.
two, something that tasted good because on day 10, I ended up losing my taste and smell. And then three, something that, had three nice components in it. And so I was like, well, we know elderberry is, a powerful antioxidant. Vitamin C, we know that's an antioxidant and a vitamin to help keep you healthy, your immune system healthy. And then zinc. And so I started just kind of playing with looking up, first of all, in like Google. Google is wonderful, but just looking up the different amounts that, would be 100% of the daily value, and started researching different manufacturers on who could possibly create something like this for me.
Mhm.
And I found one. We went back and forth just about, the ingredients that I wanted in it, what I wanted it to taste like. And they sent me some samples when I could finally taste again.
Yeah.
Ugh,
Yeah, it's
uh,
gotta be hard to do taste tests if you can't really
uh,
taste, so
and let me tell you that, you know, I find that the symptoms of COVID really aren't spoken about a lot, but losing your taste and smell it plays on your psychology
mhm.
uh, a lot.
Yeah.
And it became very difficult for me psychologically when, it had been 5 weeks and I still couldn't taste my food or
Mhm.
smell that something was burning.
Mm.
But anyway, that's another episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the immune support gummy was created from then, and then I was like, okay, well, now I need to create a label and the design, and the manufacturer was great. They kind of work with you step by step in all of that process, and we launched April 1st with the immune support gummy.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I actually launched this podcast the day before because I didn't want people to think it was a joke being on April
Oh, on
Fool's
April
Day.
Fools.
I was concerned about that because, you just never know. So I actually launched the day before.
That's smart. That's smart.
Well, I mean, obviously you're doing okay too. People figured out that the gummy was no joke. So that's a good deal. So how did that whole process go? I know nothing about creating your own healthcare supplement. So how did that process go?
Lots of Googling, lots of research. Like I said, I was home, kind of recovering. And the first few days, I really didn't feel up to anything. And that's when I was taking all the different stuff from the grocery
Mhm.
store and health food store and, trying to swallow them. But then it became just me like, what is out there right now that I could take as a gummy? How convenient is it for me to get it? Is it at every store? Could I order it from Amazon, and just kind of researching those things. What does it taste like? Does it taste horrible? How many do I have
Mhm.
to take a day? And so Googling, researching, looking on Amazon at what else was kind of out there, and then like I said, coming out with the ingredients that I knew I personally, as a healthcare provider, would want to take on a daily basis, and
Mhm.
reaching out to someone who I knew could hopefully make it taste good. I
Yeah.
went through about three different manufacturers before I found the one that hit it on the nail.
So cool. So cool. So you basically kind of handed the information over to them and you said, "Hey, here, I need you to make this."
Yeah.
So, um so what kind of costs were involved with that process?
Well, you have to pay for like samples. So once
Mhm.
they kind of create the um the compound, you have to pay for them to send you the samples to see if you like it or not. If you don't
Mhm.
like it, then you go back to square one and they create it, and then you pay for a second set of samples. I had paid for about 4 or 5 samples, I think, before I finally decided on this particular one.
Mhm.
Um, and then you have to pay for a designer to design the labels, and they have different types of bottles you can choose from, and caps and colors and things like that.
Yeah.
That's where my partner comes in, because she is more of the branding slash design team, whereas I'm more of the healthcare provider, face of the brand,
Yeah.
speaking about it. She's behind the scenes. But she was like, "Oh, these are the colors we should use. Nothing else like this looks like this that's out there right now." And so it was about a four. It took me longer to create this than it did to write my books.
Yeah. Which I mean, well, you already established that you wrote your books in like blazing speed. So, you know, there was no writer's block there, but yeah, so obviously you mentioned your partner. um, you've partnered on a book with somebody. Now you're partnering in a business. What are some of the challenges that you guys maybe have faced, and how you've overcome them in, how you communicate with each other, and how you're deciding to move forward as a team?
Mhm. I will say that marketing is it's once we find our niche, it's going to be perfect. But trying to market to that exact niche, with the price points and when should we do this ad? When should we do this promo? Should we release this video now? Okay, I did an Instagram post. Now I have to put it on Facebook.
Hmm.
Doing all of those things and being the CEO slash, brand, face of the brand, it's a lot of work behind the scenes.
Hmm.
Setting up the LLC, which I didn't speak about, setting up the LLC, getting with the CPA and sitting down and saying, like, this is what we're trying to do. What cost will we have, quarterly, things like that. All of that stuff, I think was more difficult than actually like taste testing the gummies when it was time
Yeah.
to do that. And those are the things that I don't hear a lot of business owners ever talking about. So I'm like, am I doing this right? Like, you don't really ever hear anybody talking about the hiccups kind of behind the scene.
Hmm.
Trying to do our website on our own at first, which I don't even know why we're trying to do it on our own, but um,
I did mine on my own, and it's tough. I tend to be overly verbose, and you'll see that if you go to my website. I put too much out there. I have to go through a redesign at some point, but it works for right now. But yeah, I mean, it's figuring out the things that you can do yourself versus
hiring.
hiring somebody to do it, and the expenses involved with that. It all depends on your own comfort levels and skill sets, and cash flow that you happen to have on hand.
Right. And so that was probably one of the most difficult challenges was like trying to do the website at first by ourselves. And we eventually I found a freelancer on Fiverr who set up a lot of the website for me. But then finding out like the PayPal cart wasn't activated yet and two people had already placed an order. And I'm like, why are these people ordering? Like the site's not live. It was and like, where is their money? Because
Yeah.
I don't even have a PayPal. So it was all of these things.
Oh my
Like
goodness.
it got to the point where I was like, let me just go deliver anesthesia, like because I already know anesthesia. But
Hmm.
I'm not going to give up on it because I couldn't figure that out. So I paid, another website developer to come in. He's like, oh well, you just have to do this. They know all those things. So I have now started outsourcing more freelance work
Yeah.
for the things that I just don't know how to handle and don't want to handle.
Yeah. Well, and that's something too, going back to your profession, you still work as a CRNA.
Yeah.
You have the income from that allows you to be able to put some money into your business to get you off the ground first, which is a really wonderful thing to have.
Yeah.
So,
Thankfully, like I had very briefly mentioned, I was on a debt free journey since 2016, and I have paid off over $300,000 worth of debt since then.
holy
Um,
smokes.
had COVID not happened, I would have been done. But also, had I not started on that debt free journey, I wouldn't be in a financial position now to
Hmm.
be able to kind of cash flow a business, go down to PRN per diem. Because after my COVID scare,
Hmm.
I was like, I got it. I can't be here every single day. I'm not taking care of myself. And how can I take care of others if I'm not taking care of myself? So I've gone
Hmm.
down to PRN, and because I have my finances in order, my personal finances in order, that's allowed me to do both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very cool stuff. I love this. I know that you've gotten a lot of CRNAs excited, talking about what you're doing. So, how can folks get a hold of you here?
So you can find me on Instagram. I'm Crystal Grant. I am CrystalGrant. You can find Superscript Wellness also on Instagram, and superscriptwellness.com is where you can order the gummies. And then Amazon.com, you can order the Super CRNA series or Acceptance Granted, One Woman's Journey to Becoming a CRNA.
Very cool. Well, we'll have links to all that stuff in our show notes. Pardon the pun, but this has been a really super interview. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, and best of luck to you, Crystal, and in all of your businesses moving forward.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And I look forward to building a relationship with you as well. I'm very
Yeah,
excited.
we're gonna get that cup of coffee.
Yes, yes.
All
Definitely.
right. Well, that's gonna do it for us today. Before our conversation, I had no idea of the different hardships that Crystal has actually endured in her life. Losing her parents as a very young adult and going through a divorce. Those are events that can break you or shape you. And it's clear that Crystal has such a great heart and mindset. And she's just one of those people that I like to gravitate toward. Her positivity and her spark are just palpable, and her aspirations to be a role model and to share her voice are truly admirable. This conversation was a real eye opener from a business perspective as well. I've considered writing a book myself, but it's always seemed too daunting. But Crystal proved that it doesn't have to be if you have something that's really on your heart that you want to share with the world. I've also never even considered trying to make a supplement product. It's always seemed like something that big companies do, inaccessible to small business. Crystal blows that perception out of the water, though. And I've found myself thinking about different things that I would want in a supplement. The tips and tricks that she shared about writing, publishing, and starting her own supplement company are invaluable here. But I want to speak to a larger point. You often hear the phrase, you are the sum of the five people that you spend the most time with. And I subscribe to this theory. It's conversations like this that actually confirm it for me. If you don't surround yourself with people who challenge you, then you will stunt your growth. But when others can show you what's out there and what's truly possible, you begin to see more and more opportunities around you every day. And it shapes how you look at the world. I encourage you to look at who's around you and really think about who you want to be and whether those people are supporting that effort. Thank you guys so much for listening. That's going to do it for us today. And I'll see you next time on the Plan B CRNA podcast. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by OnCall Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find OnCall Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.